Voyage of Despair, a stunning map in a bit of a pickle in the middle of the ocean, ready to sink. Does not sound very safe to me. So today that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to find out exactly how safe Voyage of Despair actually is. Welcome to the Safety Check. Okay, here we are on the one and the only Voyage of Despair. Now, we're obviously stuck here for certain reasons, and that doesn't make it safe. But even with that in mind, we do need to make sure that there is an element of safety around here, I guess. So let's start, shall we? And we're going to start with tripping hazards. Because since we've just crashed, a lot has seemed to have fallen on the floors everywhere, causing potential tripping hazards. If it's not debris, then it's ice blocks now. And obviously with all the chaos that's happened, everything has just crashed everywhere, meaning not only do you have to deal with rubble, you have to deal with everything else that was already on the boat. So with that in mind, yeah, there's a few things that you could trip over whilst on this lovely voyage. And for that reason, it is going to get a 50 out of 100. Next up on the list, we're going to talk about the hygiene. Now, obviously, as always, there's a lot of blood everywhere because everything's not gone to plan, shall we say. And just to top things off, look at the state of all the food that is left on this boat. I mean, half of it's on the floor next to all the blood, and what's not is in an open pantry or freezer area, shall I say. So that already means that all the cold air is getting out, which means it's thawing, which means it's not going to be very good for long because you can already see the water leaking from the roof as well, which means the ice isn't working anymore, and I can see flies around it as well. That doesn't set for very good hygiene levels, as I see more fruit down in the engine room now. That's not where it should be. Yeah, so I think for those reasons, it is going to have to get a pretty low mark, and it is going to get a 30 out of 100. Moving on from the awful hygiene of this map though, we can now move on to our next low tier risk, which is going to be shrapnel. Now, since we just crashed into a big old iceberg, a lot of the glass has shattered on all of the doors and windows, like here, leaving it all on the floor. And this isn't a one-off, it's in loads of different places, like down here, and down here, more glass. Now you can imagine the amount of windows that are in this place. That's a lot of shattered glass, and for that reason it is going to get a 50 out of 100, as I walk across more shattered glass. Anywho, let's go on to our next one, which is low tier burns. And a good example of this is right here. Look at all these little embers that are coming off of this wood. Or here in the starting area, it's quite a bit to say the least. Could be a risk, and for that reason it's going to get a 70 out of 100. Now, considering we just hit an iceberg, you'd think that it's probably quite cold here, you know, hence all the ice. And that also plays in relation to the weather, because not only is it cold enough to have icebergs, but it's also snowing. Now, it's not a major element of snow, don't get me wrong, but it is still snow. And considering we're having to be on deck constantly and more than likely have to evacuate the boat soon to save our lives, we're going to be on the open waters in potential snowy areas. Doesn't sound like it will be very safe for us, and doesn't sound like we could keep warm at all. So for that reason, I am going to give it a 70 out of 100. With that said and done, we can move on to the medium tier risks. And the first one I'm going to talk about is falling. Now, of course, we do potentially run the risk of falling off the side of the boat, although the railings are fairly stable still, apart from here, I guess, but you know, a one-off, you could say. But still, it has to be considered. But then the main area that caught my eye was actually down here in the third class berths, where you can just fall down this area. I'm guessing was the lift or something. That is a leg breaker, one that I don't want people falling down. It should be cordoned off, and for that reason I am going to give falling a 50 out of 100. With that said and done, let's move on to the next one, which is high grade burns. Now, we've spoken about the low tier burns like these little ones here, but we've also got to talk about big ones like here, where the chimney of the boat has actually broken apart and you can see all the flames emerging from it now. Or here, where the whole room is on fire. Doesn't look very good. And if there's one thing you can't have on a boat, is fires. I mean, we can't allow this, especially since these are meant to be our escape boats as well, and they are snapped in half and on fire. That's not great. So yeah, high tier burns is going to have to get jotted down, and it is going to get a 40 out of 100. Now, for our next medium tier risk is going to be machinery on the map. Now, with without having any crew members to sort out the machinery isn't good, you know? I mean, the map's already struggling on its own, so without having anyone to pilot it per se and steer it in the right direction, the machinery is probably going to break down quicker than we expect. That also means that all of the engineers that were down in the engine room previously are not here to maintain the machinery, keeping the ship going, like all of these big machines. First things first, I could probably stick my hand in there if I wanted to. Not great. And second of all, without anyone to maintain them, it's also not looking very good. And they are in water, which they're definitely not meant to be. So yeah, machinery is definitely going to be an issue, and it is going to get a 50 out of 100. Now next up, we are going to talk about building stability as I walk through this completely broken wall here. As you can imagine, we're sinking, so the building stability is not very good whatsoever. We are fairly stable right now, but how long is it going to last? On top of that, like I said, you've seen like certain rooms are just broken in. I mean, this isn't meant to look like this here. And of course, look at this bad boy. This is completely fallen off. This could start a massive fire soon. And to be honest, that's probably the least of the issues on this map. And of course, let me reiterate again, we are sinking. So it is going to have to get jotted pretty low, and it is going to get a 20 out of 100. Now last but not least, for the medium tier risks, I want to talk about electrocution on a map. Now, there's not a major risk per se compared to other things that are going on right now, but I have noticed it is still a bit of an issue. For example, you can see sparks coming from certain lights over here, which shouldn't be happening. And here you can see more flickering of lights and sparks coming out of them, which they shouldn't. That could potentially lead to another fire. And whilst not a massive issue right now, it could lead to a bigger issue, especially with more of the boat going underwater. So yeah, it is definitely going to have to be considered, and it is going to get a 60 out of 100. But with that said and done, that is all of the medium tier risks completed for this map. Now, before we move on to the high tier risks, I want to talk about another risk that I've spotted. And that is that 35% of you guys who watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you are a fan of these videos, then make sure to subscribe so you know exactly when these videos are released. Anyway, with that said and done, let's get into the high tier risks, because we've got a few of them today. And the first one is being crushed. Now, without all the ice falling on us or all the debris falling on us, we also have to worry about things like the massive chimneys that could potentially fall on us, which have already broken as we've previously discussed, like this one here. On top of that, if we're underground on the decks of the ship, there is even more potential for us to be crushed by the ship falling apart, to put it in the most straightforward way I can. So yeah, being crushed is definitely going to be a risk for this map, and for that reason it is going to get a 10 out of 100. Moving on from that, I want to talk about the next one, which is going to be impaling. Now, there's no like real spikes, like for example on last week's safety check with 9, but there are definitely sharp objects that you could fall on and get impaled on. For example, where all of this is broken off, if you tripped and fell on this, the chances are you're gonna die. It doesn't look good for you. So I do have to consider impaling as a safety risk, and for that reason it is gonna get a 20 out of 100. Moving on from that, the next one I want to discuss is explosions. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing major for this, but my main issue is that, like I mentioned earlier, half of the machinery downstairs is underwater. And if there's one thing I know, machinery and water do not tend to mix, not unless they're specifically designed for it, which in this case they're not. They're meant to stay on the inside of the ship nice and dry. And with all these electronics and machinery being put under further stress of being underwater, it's only a matter of time before they explode. So I think explosions is definitely going to be something that is going to be a risk, and for that reason it is going to get a 30 out of 100. Now we have one final high tier risk to talk about, and I think you guys know what it is. It is drowning. As we've mentioned a few times, half of the ship is now underwater and sinking. Does that sound very safe to you? Because in my head, it doesn't really sound very safe. Now I know we can drain some of this water out, but it doesn't stop the fact that we are still sinking. And of course, we do face the massive issue that eventually we are going to end up in the ocean. So drowning is a major issue, and it's so bad that it's actually going to get a 1 out of 100. But that is the end of the high tier risks. Now we have two miscellaneous risks that I want to talk about, and the first one is the teleports. Again, how these things send us through to different places, for example this one sent me into the water, which isn't safe on itself, baffles me. It shouldn't be able to do that. And I believe there's even a quote from Diego saying that when he goes through the teleport, his body like gets torn to shreds or something like that, and put back together, which doesn't sound safe at all. So yeah, bearing that in mind, it has to be jotted down, and it is going to be put as a 50 out of 100. Now we have one final risk that I want to talk about on this map, and it's actually what got this map into the state it is, and it's the corruption. All of this lovely black goo, or whatever you want to call it, is the corruption. And as you can see, it's taken the bodies and lives of many sailors, like this poor dude. Bless him, he doesn't look like he's having a good time. And of course, whoever isn't part of the corruption stuck to the walls now, that is everywhere we're going, like this guy, who again doesn't look like he's having a good time, has been turned into a zombie. So the corruption is definitely not good for you, and is definitely a risk, and for that reason it is going to get a 20 out of 100. Now with that said and done, that is all of the risks for the map, and now we can talk about the safety features of the map. And again, the railings are looking pretty decent in most places, all things considering. Now there's going to be a few snags here or there that aren't up to condition, but overall they're not terrible, and for that reason I am actually going to give them a 2.5. Now I have seen on the floor there were loads of life preservations for when you go in the water, like the rubber rings, or whatever you want to call them. But unfortunately, they're all just thrown all over the place on the floor. They could have been damaged in the process. People are not going to know where to find them if people are falling over, etc. I can't jot it down. It's too sporadic and not maintained. And of course, I was thinking about putting the lifeboats on there as a safety feature. Whilst this one looks okay, we did of course see ones like this that are not okay whatsoever. And I just have too much of a fear that they've been damaged, and most of them won't actually be in as good a standard as we expect. I know the crew actually gets away on one, but in the state that the ship is, I can't see them being that good a condition. But with that said and done, that is the map ranked. Now just to recap, we have tripping hazards with a rating of 50, hygiene with a rating of 30, shrapnel with a rating of 50, loaded burns with a rating of 70, the weather with a rating of 70, falling with a rating of 50, high grade burns with a rating of 40, the machinery with a rating of 50, building stability with a rating of 20, electrocution with a rating of 60, being crushed with a rating of 10, impaling with a rating of 20, explosions with a rating of 30, drowning with a rating of 1, the teleports with a rating of 50, and the corruption with a rating of 20. Now, when you put all of those scores together, you actually get a grand total of 38.5 out of 100. But we do have over 10 risks on the map, giving it a -5. And on top of that, we also have 5 or more high tier risks, giving it another -5. But of course, we do have the railings, which do give it a +2.5. So overall, when you tally those scores together, Voyage of Despair gets an overall rating of 31 out of 100. I'm not really surprised, to be honest, and if I'm honest, I was expecting it to be even lower. I think I definitely could have been harsher on some of the rankings, but that's what it's going to get today. And with that in mind, we can now add it to the tier list. And of course, Voyage of Despair is going to be in the shutdown category, and it's actually going to be between the Eisendrache and Garrod Crovey. It's in good company, but not for the right reasons. But with that being said and done, that is the end of today's safety check. Now the next safety check that we will be doing will be the one and only Dead of the Night. So if you want to be featured in next week's video, then leave a comment with your suggestion to what Dead of the Night will rank out of 100, with the closest score getting a feature at the end of next week's video. But that said and done, if you have enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. It is always greatly appreciated. Now I need to find an actual working safety boat to get out of this map before it sinks. So I'm going to do that, and I think you guys should too. And with that in mind, stay safe.